All right, listeners, buckle up. We're diving deep into the world of podcast formats today.
Ooh, getting meta. I like it.
Right. You guys sent in this really interesting piece from Siberoloji. It's called Podcast Formats and Genres. Day 2, published just last week, October 8th.
Catchy title. I'm already intrigued.
It got me thinking, we all love podcasts, right? But do we ever stop to think about why certain formats just work?
It's like choosing the right spices for a dish.
Yeah.
You wouldn't use chili powder in ice cream, would you? Unless. Maybe.
Okay, let's not get sidetracked by experimental desserts just yet. The point is, each format has its strengths.
Absolutely. Understanding those strengths can make you a more discerning listener and maybe even inspire you to create your own WN podcast.
Exactly. So Siberology kicks things off with interview podcasts.
The OG podcast format.
Right. And it's something we can all relate to, right? Whether it's a job interview, chatting with a friend, we're constantly asking and answering questions.
And a good interview podcast, it's so much more than just Q&A. It's about digging deeper. A skilled interviewer, they can pull out these amazing insights, stuff the guests themselves might not even realize they think.
It's true. Those moments where a guest says something totally unexpected and you're like, whoa, never thought of it that way.
That's the magic. Speaking of unexpected, I've got to tell you about this one interview.
Oh, go on. You know I love a good story.
So picture this. I'm interviewing this big shot chef, Michelin stars, the works, for a food podcast, naturally.
Sounds fancy.
We're all mic'd up, ready to dive into his culinary journey. And as I'm about to ask my first question, the fire alarm goes off.
No way. During the interview.
Full-blown siren blaring, the whole shebang. Turns out, someone in the next studio over burned their toast. Talk about bad timing.
Oh my gosh, that's hilarious. Did you still manage to salvage the interview?
We did, eventually. Let's just say the chef's passion for perfectly toasted bread became a running joke throughout the conversation.
I bet. See, those unexpected moments, they make for the best stories.
Totally.
Yeah.
But it highlights how important it is to be adaptable, especially in an interview setting.
No kidding. So back to the Siberology article, they break down interview podcasts into different types. And the first one they mention is the one-on-one format, kind of like what we have going on right now.
Precisely. Intimate, focused. You can really dig deep with a single guest, explore their experiences in detail.
Okay, so moving on to a format I personally find totally captivating. Storytelling podcasts.
Oh yeah, those are good.
Right, like lights down, hit play, let your imagination just run wild.
It's primal almost, our connection to a good story.
Right, and this Siberology article, they really hit on that, talking about emotional resonance.
Makes sense.
It's not just the facts, it's how those facts make you feel.
Think about a story that stayed with you for years. Chances are it's not just the plot, but how it made you feel.
Totally. Like you hear about someone overcoming some huge obstacle, you can practically feel that sense of triumph with them.
Exactly. It's visceral.
And speaking of different types of stories, the article breaks it down right. First up, the personal narrative.
This happened to me.
Yeah. Imagine a podcast where, say, an explorer is recounting this harrowing journey through the Amazon.
Intense.
You're not just learning about geography, you're right there with them, feeling their fear, their excitement.
It becomes an experience, not just information.
Exactly. And then you've got fictional narratives, which talk about immersive.
Oh yeah, those are something else.
Like Welcome to Night Vale, that's a classic example. Just incredible world building all through sound.
It's amazing what our brains can do, right?
Yeah.
Without visuals, we fill in the blanks, get even more invested.
Totally. And of course, no conversation about storytelling would be complete without mentioning
Good crime.
Dun-dun-dian. Right. Why are we so drawn to these stories, the mystery, the intrigue, that peek into the darker side of things?
It's complex, isn't it? I think part of it's that fascination with the unknown, wanting to make sense of the sensible.
Oh, for sure.
But there's also an element of maybe catharsis. Like, we listen to these investigations unfold, and it allows us to confront our own fears, but in a safe way.
Right. Like, it reminds us that even when things are chaotic, there's still that drive to find answers, to seek justice.
Exactly. We crave resolution, and true crime often provides that, even if it's not always pretty.
It really makes you think about how different storytelling formats, they tap into different parts of us, you know?
For sure. Our brains are wired for it, I think.
It's fascinating. You know, thinking about all these genres, I wonder if any of our listeners have ever surprised themselves.
Surprise themselves how?
Like found themselves hooked on a podcast style they thought they'd never be into.
Oh, all the time. You think you know what you like, and then, bam, something completely different grabs you.
All right, last but not least, we got to talk about educational podcasts.
The brainy ones.
Right. And before you tune out, thinking it's all textbooks and lectures, let me tell you, this category, it's way more engaging than it used to be.
Oh, for sure. It's not your grandma's classroom anymore.
Exactly. This Siberoloji article, they even use the phrase immersive experience to describe some of these podcasts.
Which makes sense. Think about it. Instead of just reading a dry history book, you're suddenly transported back in time.
Right. Through sound alone. It's kind of wild when you think about it.
Totally. Imagine listening to a podcast about, say, the American Revolution.
Okay, I'm listening.
But instead of just dates and names, you're hearing the roar of the crowd at the Boston Tea Party, the whispers of revolutionaries planning their next move.
Ooh, chills. See, that's what I'm talking about. It's like suddenly history's not so boring anymore.
Exactly. And that's the power of sound design, right? Which the article touches on as well.
It's not just what you're saying, it's how you say it.
1,000%.
Ah,
Sound can evoke emotions, create atmosphere. It's a whole other layer of storytelling.
so true. And then you've got those podcasts that teach you actual skills like coding or cooking.
Yeah, the tutorials, those are super popular.
Makes sense, right? It's like having a personal tutor in your pocket.
Exactly. Learn at your own pace, rewind if you need to, no judgment.
And no awkward silences when you have to ask a question.
Uh-huh, exactly.
Yeah.
And then, if you really want to geek out on a topic, there's expert interview podcasts.
Oh, yeah, those are great.
It's like you're eavesdropping on a conversation between these brilliant minds, getting their insights firsthand.
And someone's already done the hard work of distilling all that information for you, so you don't have to wade through a bunch of jargon.
Exactly. It's making knowledge accessible, which is so important.
Totally. So, as we wrap up our deep dive into podcast formats today, I'm curious, what advice would you give to our listeners who might be feeling inspired to create their own shows?
Good question. I'd say, first and foremost, find something you're truly passionate about.
Yeah, passion is key.
Right? It could be anything. But if you're not excited about it, it'll show.
And then what, once you've got your passion project?
Then it's about finding your voice, your unique perspective. What can you bring to the table that no one else can?
Love that. It's not just about creating another podcast, it's about making it your own.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to experiment, play around with different formats, see what feels right.
That's such great advice. Experimentation is how new formats are born, after all.
Exactly. Who knows, maybe one of our listeners will create the next big podcasting trend.
Ooh, exciting. Well, there you have it, folks. A whirlwind tour of the podcasting landscape, thanks to this awesome article from Siberoloji.
We've covered everything from the art of the interview to the power of storytelling, and even how to make learning fun again.
If you ask me, the future of podcasting is bright. So much creativity out there, so many stories waiting to be told.
Couldn't agree more. And who knows what amazing new formats are just around the corner.
The possibilities are endless. So to our listeners, we say, keep exploring, keep creating, and most importantly, keep listening.